want to do a video on one of my favorite things to do in the spring, and that's throw a crankbait. And that's a square bill crankbait. Really shines. The spring's the best time to do it. It's getting to be that time of year for a lot of you in the country already, and it's gonna be very soon for me here in South Carolina. And that's why I want to do this video and share some of my tips and some of the things I like to do with a square bill crankbait to catch more fish, you know, in that time of year. So when it comes to springtime cranking, the reason a square bill is so good is because you need to find the fish. They tend to be grouped up really well up shallow. They're coming up shallow and they get grouped up, but a square bill is like a great bait for covering a lot of water and finding those fish. Yeah, sometimes you might catch them better on some other baits, but you can't cover near as much water as you can with a square bill crankbait. Square bill, the ones I throw, generally I'm not fishing any deeper than 5 foot deep if I'm throwing a square bill. If I want to get something deeper, I'll throw a, you know, a bigger build, more like big crankbait, or like a wintertime crankbait, I guess you'd say. But when I'm fishing the bank, it's gonna be a square bill crankbait because it comes through rock, it comes off the side of docks, it comes through cover really well. I'm gonna talk about the arc square bills. These are ones that I'm helping, you know, design and help. We will come out with probably some new colors, some new styles soon, but right now there's the Z Alpha and the CT crankbait series in these, and these square bills, so I carry two sizes. I carry 1.5 and a 2.5. I would probably say I throw the 1.5 the most. This is the 2.5, it's pretty big. You can see it compared to my hand. It's a really big bait, so I throw the 1.5 more. I'm just holding this 2.5 for talking about it. And when it comes to square bill cranking, I keep, you know, my color is pretty simple. I'm gonna keep a shad pattern. I'm gonna keep your general crawfish pattern that's hooked to my shad pattern here. Well, you see that? Keep a crawfish pattern, the shad pattern, and then I like some type of brighter color, like this one has a little chartreuse on it, just something that's more of a brighter shad pattern. That's really the 3 color square bills I throw mostly. The difference in this CT versus the Z Alpha, the CT is just, you know, it's a cheaper bait. It's like a $8.99, $9.99 bait versus the Alphas in the teens. And the Alpha just has a circuit board bill, a little bit higher quality, a little bit more durable. And I really don't get too specific on which one I'm throwing. I just throw the one that I feel like is the best for the situation. It's color-wise, because the colors vary a little bit. So 3 colors, crawl, a shad, a crawl, and kind of a brighter shad. That's what I throw a lot. And I would definitely say the 1.5 is my go-to size when it comes to that. And the crawl pattern, you know, your bright reds, your oranges, they're really good in the spring. When it comes to that dirtier water, that springtime fish coming up, it really doesn't even have to be that dirty. I don't really know why fish love that bright red, orange crawfish pattern in the spring, but that's probably my #1 color. In the fall, I throw a lot of shad colors because I think the fish are feeding primarily on shad. But in the early spring, they really like those crawl colors. And the square bill is real good with that crawl color around rock, because I think that's what a lot of the fish are getting up on. You can fish it pretty fast and catch a lot of fish. But when it comes to throwing a square bill versus a normal crankbait, I really like to get, like, really bang that off of cover. You know, a typical crankbait, a lot of times you get hung. You can't really do that. But a square bill, I don't make as long cast as I would with, say, you know, a normal like 6 to 10 foot diving crankbait. I'm making a lot shorter cast. I'm more fishing it a lot like I would the big Colorado blade spinnerbait or a jig or something, where I'm not necessarily pitching it, but I'm making a little short roll cast and making that bait come right by the cover. You're generally fishing less than 5 foot deep, and a square bill gets to depth really fast because it doesn't go that deep. It goes 3 or 4 foot deep, and it gets to that depth really fast, so you don't have to make long casts past your target like you would with a normal crankbait. And the square bills also offer you to get away with a lot bigger line. Those hooks on these square bill crankbaits, they're all larger hooks. They're, you know, #4s probably on the smallest side, up to like 2s or #1s. They're really big treble hooks. So you want a little bit heavier line and a little bit stiffer rod to be able to drive that hook into the fish, and you can pull a lot harder to get fish out of this heavy cover if you threw, you know, under a dock or down the side of a dock. So I'm gonna go probably minimum of like 14, 15 pound test up to 20 pound test on them, because you're not worried about diving depth. That's the beauty of a square bill, is if you take like a normal, you know, flat side crankbait and you try to throw in 20 pound test, it'll go 2 foot deep versus 7. Well, a square bill is a big enough profile bait to where it really doesn't change. If you put, you know, anywhere from 15 to 20 pound test, it may go a foot or so deeper, but it doesn't change the action or the diving depth of that bait a lot. And that's the only time I really use that bigger 2.5, if I think there's a lot of big forage, or it gets like a little bit deeper than that 1.5. Not a ton deeper because it's a bigger profile, but it gets a little bit deeper and it's just a bigger profile if they're eating, you know, big gizzards or it's just big fish in a lake. Then I like that 2.5. But when it comes to setup on that square bill, use 2 different rods. So if I'm throwing more on rocky banks and not really super concerned about, like, you know, pinpoint casting, I'm gonna use my Good Vibes. It's a fiberglass composite rod, and it's a little bit harder to be super accurate with because it is that fiberglass rod, but it's good for landing fish. It's got enough backbone to drive that hook in, but then it's got the forgiving for head shakes and fish coming up and jump with that bigger bait. It's very forgiving on that, and your landing percentage is a lot better on it. But when it comes to like throwing tight around laydowns, wood, docks, I don't like the composite rod for that because it's a little bit harder to aim. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't be accurate, but you can't roll cast it as well as you could with a graphite rod. So I'm gonna go with my one more in my Cobb series arc rods when it comes to throwing around tight wood cover with the square bill. But the cool thing about square bill is, yeah, you can catch them running down the bank with it just like you would, you know, any crankbait, but really kind of pick it up and try to kind of fish it at targets. Like try to get don't get your boat as far away, don't make long overhand or sidearm casts. Get tight and kind of roll cast or pitch it, you know, tight to cover, and fish it more like you would, let's say, a spinnerbait or a chatterbait than you would a crankbait. I've had a lot more success with these square bill crankbaits when I think of them more like that than I do the true crankbait presentation. And this is the CT and Z Alpha from ARC. These are cool baits. So check out, keep it simple, get you 3 main colors. Try a crawl, a shad, and a brighter shad. But in the spring, it's getting to be that time. I would definitely start with the crawfish pattern, that orange, that red, those super bright colors, because it's really, really successful. But try this. When your water temperature gets up, you know, over 50 degrees, you start getting some pre-spawn fish. This is an awesome bait to cover a lot of water and find those groups really, really fast.